It's a little dark in here, but that's fine. That's kind of the vibe of the location that I'm at. I'm inside Creator Space in St. Paul, and this is one of their many rooms or creative studios. It's called The Study. So if you're ever in St. Paul or in the Twin Cities and you want to utilize the space, contact me and I can get you set up. But what I want to talk to you guys about in this video is when you're a freelancer or an entrepreneur, you're working for yourself or you're doing side gigs, it's extremely important to understand who your clientele and who you're dealing with. We all have certain policies that we want to put in place and certain procedures that we feel like make us more professional, appear to be more professional, or make other people treat us more professionally. But I can tell you, as somebody who works for themselves, somebody who's worked for other companies, somebody who's worked with corporations, that those are more so guidelines, and who you're working with really determines how hard and how strictly you enforce those guidelines, right? So I recently had a situation where I hired somebody. This is somebody I've worked with before. They're a freelancer. I hired them to do a project for me, and we discussed the deadline. We discussed what the project would entail. We discussed price, and we got all of that done. Boom, okay. They agreed to start working on it. Sent them over the assets that they needed, and basically we went past the deadline. So I was like, well, let me come sit down with you in person, and we can, then you'll better get an understanding of what exactly I want. We can go from there. So we do that. Everything seemed good. We laid everything out. I asked all the questions I needed to ask. He did the same, and still didn't get my project. So finally I got an email saying, hey, I know we've worked together before. I know money's not an issue for you. I know you're always professional. You always pay everybody on time. But it's just my policy that I take a deposit. Can you send me a deposit of this much? Okay, I sent them a deposit, no problem. I respect that. It's your business. You move how you want to move. It's not an issue. Well, moving forward, the deadline's passing. And the thing about someone like me, once again, understanding your clientele, I'm independent, but I may be looking for corporate sponsors, or I may be working with a celebrity on something, or a big name, or some type of organization, and they're waiting on me for my materials for them to get involved with whatever I'm doing. So deadlines are extremely important to me. And I mean, back in January of 2018, I had 2019 already planned until basically January 2020. So me losing a week, losing 2 weeks, losing a month is a big deal, because it offsets the whole year, just because now you got to play catch up, and you don't know what other opportunities or delays may come up in the meantime. So deadlines are important for me, and so I'm trying to figure out what the issue is, and now we're a couple weeks behind deadline, and pretty much he was unsatisfied with the deposit that he requested, and took 2 weeks to tell me this, instead of just saying, hey, I would like a bigger deposit or whatever it may be. And he's losing me money and time. So you want me to pay you, and I'm losing money and time doing it. So essentially we end up having a back and forth. I get a text message, and text message basically says, I'm going to stop beating around the bush. I would like more money for a deposit, and that's just my policy, and I don't want to work. I know money's not an issue for you, but I just don't want to work without a deposit. So of course my response was, I gave you a deposit. Not only did I give you a deposit, I gave you the deposit that you requested, sent a screenshot of the request, and then was just like, you're missing deadlines, so you're admitting that you don't have, you've never had a problem with payment from me. No one has. You've said your policy is to receive a deposit, which it was a deposit that I gave you, that you requested, and you're late. So you want more money for being late past the deadline. When you throw off one of my deadlines, right, you throw off, I have other stuff to do. So instead of me moving on to the other things that I need to do, responding to the emails that are waiting for the materials that you may be putting together for me, Now everything's thrown off. You're being unprofessional. I'm appearing to be unprofessional or not serious about the requests I've made because I'm not giving them the materials that they've asked for, and it just becomes this cycle. And I just had to let them know that, listen, by the time you complete what I've asked you for, I no longer need it. So let's just stop working together. The time it will take me to find somebody else to do what I want would probably match the time it would take you to figure out what you need to figure out in order to give me what I need. And that's another big lesson. When you're dealing with me, and this is, for every entrepreneur watching, I've done tech, I've done fashion, I've done film. If you do business with me, I'm going to just tell you how I am as an individual. If you act like I need you, I will stop working with you. Period. Even if I do need you. Right? Because I don't actually need you. I need you in this moment. I need you for this deadline because you've already wasted so much time. I need the materials. I need your skill. But I don't need you if you're not getting me what I need. You'll never trick me into feeling like I need you. Just because I've been working with you and I may be at a point of no return. I've fired developers that acted like that. I've fired graphic designers. I've fired web designers. Like anybody, I've canceled friends who's acted like, if you act like I need you, I will show you how much I don't. I work with other creatives and entrepreneurs that I want to work with because I feel like we have a vibe, a connection. I feel like you have the skills we need, and I feel like you'll make my life easier. If you're making my life more difficult, I'll cut you off instantly. So, getting back to the point of the video, when you have certain clientele, you can have basic policy in place, but I can tell you I've worked with major corporations. I'm talking about corporations that do billions, and they'll act cheap sometimes. They'll offer, they'll super lowball a project to save money and act like they don't have money. Oh, we don't have it. We've already planned our budget out for the fiscal year or whatever it may be. I've worked with high-level executives that are late, that have been flaky, and I'm not going to mention the companies because I still have good relationships with them, but big companies that everybody knows, late or doesn't show up or flaky, or like I said, sometimes they're cheap, whatever it may be. So when you're dealing with, when you're a freelancer yourself or entrepreneur, you're dealing with other entrepreneurs, don't be so hard on them with your policy if they do good business, because I can tell you that the level you're aspiring to be at, it's still the same. It's still the same. You have companies that have net 60, net 90 days on payment, which means you do the work, you turn in the work, and it's in the contract that they have 90 days to pay you, right? But you're stuck on dealing with somebody who's also independent, paying you, even before you've even done any work, paying you more even before you've done any work, right? And so you have to just know who you're dealing with. If you're dealing with somebody that does good business, with other people, has done good business with you, don't give them a hard time and make their life more difficult, because essentially they can make your life more difficult or just drop you as a client, period. And now that's money lost thinking that you're working the corporate way, and the corporations don't work that way. They work that way with the small guys. You know what I mean? They work that way with people that they want to have policies and guidelines with. But I'm telling you that they don't make deposits, right? They pay you after the work is complete to their satisfaction. They may promise you amount and drop it, say we ain't got it. I've seen that. I've had events that I've been a part of organizing where sponsors dedicated pledged a certain amount of sponsorship money, and then last minute we're just like, we don't have it, after they've literally guaranteed the money. So know who you're dealing with. When you're dealing with good business, big or small, continue to do good business, and don't kind of trivialize the relationship to a made-up policy. And then when they respect your policy and deal with it, don't continue to kind of like push your limit, because it's never going to be worth it. So at the end of the day, when you have a client Know who your client is as you build a relationship. Everybody can come through the door under the same policy, but as you build that relationship, understand them, understand how they work, understand what they need, and go above and beyond to satisfy that, especially when it's a repeat client, when it's a client that pays in full, pays on time, and has more business for you and more connections and relationships. Don't treat them like you would every other client who doesn't do those things, who's a one-off, or who is going to give you a deposit but take you forever to give you the finished product, or their business isn't really going anywhere. Like, as a freelancer, as an entrepreneur, as being independent, it's very crucial for you to know who your clients are, because otherwise you're losing money. And for what? Pay attention.
How would you describe yourself?
It took my whole life to become who I always said I was going to be.